The human soldier had been alone for 43 days. The moon had no real name, only a number in old star charts that nobody used anymore. It was a quiet place, covered in gray dust and broken metal from ships that had failed long ago. Most species avoided it because the gravity was uneven and the magnetic storms made navigation difficult. To the wider galaxy, it was a graveyard. To the human, it was a problem that needed solving. His ship rested on one side of a shallow crater, tilted like a wounded animal that refused to lie down. One engine was dead. The hull was cracked in several places. Power systems flickered on and off without warning. Any modern spacefaring race would have marked the ship as lost and called for extraction. But humans were not known for giving up simply because something was labeled impossible. The soldier moved slowly across the hull, boots crunching against dust and rust. His suit was old, patched in more places than he could remember. He carried a toolkit that had been rebuilt almost as many times as the ship itself. None of it looked impressive. None of it was advanced. But it worked. He paused near the broken engine housing and wiped sweat from his forehead. The moon's thin atmosphere did little to carry away heat, and the work was exhausting. Still, his face showed calm focus instead of frustration. He studied the damage carefully, not with anger, but with patience. "This can be fixed," he said quietly to himself. He had said the same words every day since the crash. The ship was human-made, which already made it strange by galactic standards. It was modular, ugly, and inefficient on paper. Other species preferred smooth designs, perfectly balanced systems, and ships that never needed hands-on repair. Human ships were different. They were built to be opened, changed, and argued with. The soldier removed a damaged panel and set it aside. Sparks flickered as he rerouted power from a secondary system that should not have been able to support an engine. He used a piece of scavenged alloy taken from a wreck nearby, cutting and shaping it with tools that were never meant for precision work. The galaxy believed repairs required factories. Humans believed repairs required effort. High above the moon, hidden behind sensor-masking debris, an automated observation satellite adjusted its focus. It had been inactive for centuries, left behind by an alien civilization that once studied dangerous regions of space. The satellite's system slowly woke, confused by the energy readings coming from below. According to its data, the ship should not be functional. According to its calculations, the species performing the repairs should not survive in these conditions. Yet the human continued. The satellite began recording. Down on the surface, the soldier climbed down from the hull and entered the ship through an exposed maintenance hatch. Inside, the ship was cramped and dim. Loose wires hung from the ceiling. Panels were open everywhere. The place looked more like a workshop than a spacecraft. He sat in the pilot's chair and ran another diagnostic. Multiple warnings appeared. He ignored most of them. "What matters is lift," he muttered. "And control." Life support hummed steadily. That alone felt like a victory. He remembered the moment of failure weeks ago when the ship had shuddered violently and alarms had filled the cockpit. He could have ejected. He could have called for rescue. But human rescue ships were far away, and he knew the truth before the computer finished its warning. Nobody was coming soon, so he stayed. Every day followed the same pattern. Repair, test, fail. Adjust, try again. Sometimes progress was measured in centimeters or seconds of stable power. Sometimes it felt like nothing had changed at all. Still, he worked. He talked to the ship as if it could hear him. He named broken parts like old enemies and stubborn friends. When something finally held together, he smiled like he had just won an argument. What he did not know was that every successful adjustment sent new data into the satellite's ancient memory banks. The system flagged the behavior as unusual, then rare, then statistically impossible. The satellite transmitted a compressed signal across the stars, far away in a bright and carefully controlled system. The signal was received. The alien princess stood in a chamber filled with soft light and floating data displays. Her species valued harmony and beauty above all things. Everything around her was designed with smooth curves and perfect symmetry. Even the air carried a faint, pleasant scent, engineered to calm the mind. She watched the recording in silence. On the display, the human soldier crawled across the damaged ship, covered in dust, clearly exhausted. His movements were inefficient. His tools were crude. His ship was misshapen and scarred. By her culture's standards, it was all wrong. And yet, the ship's power readings rose. The engine stabilized. The human smiled. The princess tilted her head slightly, studying him more closely. Humans were not considered attractive by her people. Their faces were uneven. Their skin lacked natural patterning. Their movements were unpredictable. Most dismissed them as biologically awkward. But the data did not lie. He was alone, unsupported, and working with broken technology in a hostile environment. And still, he refused to stop. There was no visible panic, no surrender response, only steady effort. One of her advisors spoke softly. "It is likely coincidence, Your Radiance."
"The ship may fail again."
"Perhaps," the princess replied. Her voice was calm, thoughtful. "But observe his behavior. He does not act as one who expects failure." The display showed the human resting against the hull, drinking from a container, staring at the stars above. There was tiredness in his eyes, but also determination. "He repairs instead of replaces," she said. "He adapts instead of retreats." Her species chose mates based on survival traits: strength, efficiency, genetic stability. Emotions were considered secondary. Yet as she watched the human return to work after only a brief rest, something unfamiliar stirred in her thoughts. Curiosity. Back on the moon, the soldier completed another adjustment and stepped back. The engine casing vibrated, then steadied. The sound it made was rough, but consistent. He laughed softly, shaking his head. "You're stubborn," he told the ship. "Guess that makes two of us." He did not notice the faint glimmer of light far above, or the fact that his actions were now being discussed in royal chambers light years away. All he knew was that the ship was closer to flying than it had been yesterday. As the artificial sun dipped below the horizon, casting long shadows across the wrecked moon, the human soldier climbed into the cockpit once more. He powered down non-essential systems and leaned back, exhausted, but satisfied. Tomorrow, he would try a short lift test. Tomorrow, he would either fail again or succeed. And somewhere in the vastness of space, an alien princess made a decision that would change both their lives. All because one human refused to accept that something broken was beyond repair. The alien princess did not sleep after watching the recording. Sleep, for her species, was a carefully timed biological process, guided by soft lights and chemical signals. It was meant to keep the mind clear and the body perfect. That cycle passed unused as she remained in the observation chamber, replaying the same moments again and again. The human soldier tightening a bolt with hands that trembled from exhaustion. The pause before he tested a system, as if he were listening to the ship. The quiet smile when something finally worked. None of it fit into the models her people used to judge other species. She dismissed the advisors and reduced the chamber lights. Alone, she allowed herself to focus fully on the data. The satellite's analysis scrolled beside the video feed, full of warnings and contradictions. Environmental stress levels were listed as lethal. Tool efficiency was marked as insufficient. Probability of success remained close to zero. And yet the ship continued to improve. "This should not be possible," she said softly. Her species had evolved in stable environments. They built beautiful things, but fragile ones. When systems failed, they replaced them. When conditions worsened, they relocated. Survival, to them, meant avoiding damage. The human soldier survived by accepting damage and working anyway. She opened the cultural database on humans. It was outdated and thin, compiled mostly from secondhand reports and trade encounters. Humans were described as loud, emotionally driven, and physically unrefined. They were classified as mid-level engineers, unreliable diplomats, and poor long-term planners. The princess frowned slightly. "These records are incomplete," she said to herself. She ordered a deeper scan of archived encounters. Stories emerged. Human crews keeping ships operational far past design limits. Colonies surviving in harsh conditions by sharing resources and improvising solutions. Humans forming bonds not because it was efficient, but because it mattered to them. She noticed a pattern. Humans did not wait for permission to endure. Meanwhile, on the broken moon, the human soldier prepared for the lift test. He had slept poorly, waking often to check power levels and structural readings. Each time, the ship had remained stable. That alone felt unreal. He moved carefully now, aware that one mistake could undo weeks of work. He ran through the checklist slowly. Controls responded, with a slight delay. But they responded. The engine temperature climbed higher than recommended, then leveled off. He adjusted cooling vents manually, using a lever he had welded into place 2 days earlier. "Easy," he murmured. "Just a little push." He activated low thrust mode. The ship vibrated. Dust lifted from the ground. For a moment, nothing else happened. Then, the ship rose, only a meter at first, hovering unevenly, like it was unsure whether it belonged in the air. The soldier held his breath, hands steady on the controls. He felt every tremor through the frame. The ship stayed up. A laugh escaped him before he could stop it. It was short and tired, but full of relief. He held the hover for 10 seconds, then carefully lowered the ship back into the crater. When the landing struts touched the ground, he shut down the engine and leaned forward, resting his forehead against the console. "It flies," he whispered. The satellite recorded everything. Across the stars, the princess stood straighter as the data updated. Power output stable. Structural integrity within acceptable margins. Lift capability confirmed. One of her advisors returned, unable to hide their concern. "Your radiance. This individual may attract attention." Other factions monitor salvage zones.
"I am aware," the princess replied. "Then perhaps we should destroy the satellite and end observation," the advisor suggested carefully.
"Humans are unpredictable," the princess shook her head.
"We will not interfere. Not yet." She watched the human exit the ship, arms raised briefly toward the sky, then drop as exhaustion caught up with him. He sat on the ground beside the hull, back against warm metal, breathing slowly. "He does not celebrate for long," she noted. "He rests only enough to continue." Her advisor hesitated. "Why does this interest you so deeply, Your Radiance?" The princess considered the question longer than expected. "Because," she said at last, "he represents a trait we lack." "What trait is that?" "Persistence without certainty." The words surprised even her. Her species planned everything. They chose mates based on predicted outcomes. They avoided risk. But the human soldier worked without guarantees, driven by something beyond logic. The idea was unsettling. And fascinating. She authorized a controlled signal to be prepared, one that could be sent when the time was right. Not a demand, not a command, an invitation. Back on the moon, the human soldier spent the next 2 days reinforcing the landing struts and recalibrating navigation controls. The ship could lift, but sustained flight was still dangerous. He needed stability more than speed. He worked with renewed energy now. Hope did that to humans. During a routine systems check, a new alert appeared. It was not one he recognized. The signal was weak, buried beneath static, but clearly artificial. He frowned. "That's new." He traced the signal source. It was not local. It was coming from far beyond the moon, carried on frequencies his ship barely supported. He boosted the receiver and cleaned the signal as best he could. A pattern emerged, structured.
Intentional. Someone's out there, he said quietly.
He hesitated before responding. Human protocol advised caution, but also openness. He sent a simple return signal, little more than a greeting and a confirmation of reception. He waited. Hours passed with no reply. Then, as he was sealing a hull crack near the cargo bay, his suit's comm system chimed. The signal was clearer now, translated automatically, though imperfectly. Human engineer, we observe your work. We request dialogue. The soldier froze. Engineer? He glanced around the empty moon, heart pounding. Okay, he said slowly, speaking aloud even though he knew the system would transmit text. You've got my attention. You repair what others abandon. This behavior is noted. He swallowed. Who am I talking to? There was a pause, longer this time.
I am a representative of a royal house, the message read.
No hostility is intended, the soldier exhaled. Royal usually meant complicated.
I'm just trying to get home, he replied. I'm not looking for trouble. We understand, came the answer.
Your actions suggest rare adaptability. Our princess wishes to learn more. The word princess made him blink.
Well, he said, rubbing the back of his neck. This is a first. He considered shutting down communication. Staying hidden had advantages. But humans were curious, and he had survived this long by talking his way through problems as often as fixing them. All right, he sent back. We can talk, but I don't make deals I don't understand. There was a sense of approval in the next transmission. That aligns with our observations? Far away, the princess allowed herself a small, controlled smile. Contact had been made, not through force or display, but through recognition of effort. She watched the live feed now, seeing the human stand beside his battered ship, unaware of how closely he was being studied. Her advisors murmured behind her, uncertain and uneasy. She did not silence them. For the first time in her carefully ordered life, she felt anticipation instead of certainty. And on a forgotten moon, a human soldier wiped dust from his hands, unaware that repairing his ship had already carried him far beyond survival, and into the attention of someone who saw strength where others saw only flaws. The communication channels stayed open. After the first exchange, quiet but alive, like a held breath, the human soldier did not rush to speak again. He had learned long ago that silence could be useful. It gave him time to think, and it told the other side that he was not desperate. He sat on the edge of the ship's ramp, boots dangling above the dust, eyes fixed on the stars. The moon was still and empty, just as it had been for weeks, yet it no longer felt truly lonely. Somewhere out there, someone was watching him with interest instead of indifference. Inside a distant command chamber, the alien princess observed the live feed carefully. The human's posture was relaxed, but his eyes were alert. He did not pace or show fear. He waited. He is cautious, one advisor noted.
He is respectful, the princess replied. He does not assume authority, but he does not surrender it either.
She instructed the translators to refine their output. Human language was inefficient, filled with emotional markers and flexible meanings. Still, it carried something her own language often lacked: intent. She sent another message. We will speak plainly. You are not in danger. No claim is made on your ship or your person. The human read the words twice before answering. Good, he replied.
Because I wouldn't agree to that.
A faint ripple of surprise passed through the advisors. The princess felt something close to amusement. Understood, she sent back. Your refusal is acknowledged. The human tilted his head slightly as if trying to picture the being on the other end. So, he typed, why are you watching me? The princess did not answer immediately. She chose her words with care. Your behavior contradicts our models, she said at last. We study contradictions. The human let out a small breath, half a laugh. Yeah, that sounds like us. He stood and walked along the hull, running a hand over a rough patch he had welded earlier. Look, I'm not doing anything special. I just fix what I can with what I have.
That is what makes it special, the princess replied. She leaned closer to the display as the human paused, considering the words.
Where I'm from, he said slowly, if you wait for perfect tools or perfect conditions, nothing ever gets done. The translators struggled with the phrasing but delivered the meaning well enough. We live in it, the human answered. No offense. None taken, she replied, surprising some of her court.
Your honesty is consistent.
The conversation continued in small steps. Questions and answers, each careful, each revealing something new. The princess asked about the ship, about its design, about why it allowed manual overrides that could damage internal balance. Because systems fail, the human said simply.
And when they do, someone needs to make a decision fast. And if the decision is wrong, she asked, then you fix that too. The advisors exchanged uneasy looks.
To them, this sounded reckless. To the princess, it sounded alive.
She shifted the topic gently. You are a soldier.
Yet you act as an engineer. He shrugged. On a human ship, everyone's an engineer when things go bad. This answer stayed with her. In her society, roles were strict. A soldier fought, an engineer built, a ruler decided. Crossing those lines caused disorder, and yet this human crossed them without hesitation, without even noticing.
Does this not cause conflict? She asked. Sometimes, he admitted.
But it also keeps us alive. The princess ended the session after several more exchanges, not because she was finished, but because she sensed fatigue in the human's responses. Humans, she was learning, could endure much, but they still needed rest.
We will speak again, she said. Looking forward to it,
the human replied.
Whoever you are. When the channel closed, the princess remained where she was, thoughtful.
This is unwise, one advisor said carefully. He is influencing you. The princess did not deny it. He is informing me. She turned away from the display and began pacing slowly, a rare break from her usual stillness. Her mind replayed the conversation, not the words, but the tone, the balance between caution and confidence, the lack of submission, yet absence of threat.
He treats dialogue as cooperation, she said, not dominance. That is not how alliances work, another advisor warned.
It may be how the strongest ones begin, she replied. On the moon, the human soldier lay on his bunk, hands folded behind his head, staring at the low ceiling.
The ship hummed softly around him. For the first time since the crash, he did not feel entirely alone. Royal house, he muttered. Princess. He shook his head, a smile tugging at his lips. Figures. He wondered what she looked like. He wondered what she wanted. Mostly, he wondered why she cared. Sleep came slowly, but when it did, it was deeper than it had been in weeks. The next communication arrived the following day, while he was recalibrating the navigation array. This time, the signal included a visual component. He hesitated before accepting it. Then he shrugged. Why not? The image resolved into a figure unlike any he had seen before. The alien princess stood tall, her form elegant but unfamiliar. Her skin bore natural patterns that shifted subtly with the light. Her eyes were large, reflective, and focused directly toward him. By human standards, she might have seemed strange, even unsettling. By her people's standards, she was perfect. The human did not react immediately. He simply studied her, the way he studied damaged machinery, not judging, just learning.
"You're real," he said at last.
Yes, she replied. As are you. He scratched his chin. Guess that answers that. She noticed his lack of visible shock. Most species reacted strongly to first visual contact. Humans, it seemed, adjusted quickly. You are not disturbed, she observed. I've seen weirder, he said honestly. No offense. Again, none was taken. The princess inclined her head slightly. I will speak plainly again. My interest in you is not solely academic. The human's eyebrows rose. Okay, that's usually where things get complicated. In my culture, she continued, we select mates based on traits that strengthen our future generations. He froze. Mates, he repeated slowly. Yes. The word hung between them, heavy but not threatening. The human did not panic. He did not laugh. He did not shut down the channel. He took a long breath. I think, he said carefully, we might be talking past each other. Explain, she requested. To humans, he said. Choosing a partner isn't a strategic decision made by a government or a royal house. It's personal. It's about choice. Mutual choice. The princess listened closely, absorbing every word. And if the choice is beneficial to both, she asked, then it can work, he replied. But it can't be forced, and it can't be treated like a contract for genetics. The advisors reacted immediately, voices overlapping in protest. The princess raised a hand, silencing them. You refuse, she said to the human. I don't refuse you, he corrected gently. I refuse the idea that I'm something to be selected without my understanding. This answer struck her deeply. No one had ever spoken to her that way. Not with disrespect, but with boundaries. I see, she said slowly. She studied him again, not as a subject, but as an equal mind. Then let us begin with understanding. I can do that, he said. I'm good at learning on the job. A faint change passed through her patterns, something like warmth. Then we will speak as individuals, she said, not as symbols. The call ended shortly after. The human soldier sat back in his chair, heart beating faster now. Well, he said to the empty cockpit, that escalated. He looked around at the ship he had rebuilt piece by piece. It had carried him through isolation, through failure, through doubt. Now, somehow, it had carried him into something even more uncertain. Not danger, but connection. Far away, the alien princess dismissed her court for the day. Alone, she stood by the wide viewing window, watching the stars drift past. For the first time, she was not thinking about duty or prediction. She was thinking about choice. The next days passed differently for both of them. For the human soldier, time became a balance between work and conversation. He still repaired the ship every morning, tightening systems, testing limits, preparing for a longer flight. But now, during breaks, the communication channel opened more often. The alien princess did not interrupt his work. She waited until he chose to speak, which he noticed, and quietly respected. For the princess, time became something less rigid. Her schedule had always been fixed down to exact cycles, meetings, studies, rituals, rest, all planned far in advance. Now she found herself delaying councils and shortening formal appearances just to return to the observation chamber. They spoke of simple things at first. The human explained how Earth's skies changed color at sunset, how storms could arrive without warning, how people learned to live with uncertainty instead of fighting it. He spoke of shared meals, of laughter during hard work, of how humans complained but kept going anyway. The princess listened carefully. Her world was controlled, climate managed, predictable. Storms were calculated events, never surprises. Her people believed safety was the highest goal. "But safety does not create strength," she said once, thoughtfully. "No," the human replied. "It creates comfort. Strength comes when comfort fails." That sentence stayed with her. In the royal court, tension grew. Advisors whispered. Nobles questioned. Rumors spread that the princess was distracted, that her judgment was being influenced by a lesser species. Some claimed humans were emotionally manipulative. Others feared the political cost of even informal association. During one council session, an elder spoke openly. "Your radiance. You risk destabilizing alliances that took generations to build. All because of one stranded soldier." The princess met the elder's gaze without anger.
Not because of one soldier, she said calmly.
"Because of what he represents." "And what is that?" the elder demanded. "An answer to a weakness we refuse to admit." Silence followed. She stood. "This council is dismissed. It was a bold move." Too bold, some thought. On the moon, the humans sensed the shift even without seeing it. The princess seemed quieter during their next conversation, her patterns dimmer. "You okay?" he asked. She paused. "My choices are being questioned." He nodded. "Yeah. That happens when you stop doing what people expect." "You speak as if you have experience," she observed. He smiled faintly. "Every time I fixed something, someone told me to replace." She looked at him for a long moment. "Do you regret it?" "Never," he said. "Regret comes from not trying." That answer steadied her. The next subject they approached was more difficult. "You said earlier," the princess began carefully, "that partnership among humans is based on mutual choice." "Yeah," he replied. "Trust, respect, shared direction." "And emotional connection?" she asked. He hesitated, then nodded. "That too. Her species viewed emotion as a byproduct, not a foundation. Emotions were managed, moderated, controlled. Yet the more she learned about humans, the clearer it became that emotion was not a weakness. It was fuel. "When humans form bonds," she asked, "do they always last?" He chuckled softly. "No."
Nothing always lasts. Then why do it? She asked.
"Because even temporary bonds change who you are," he said. "And sometimes that's worth the risk." That word carried weight. Later that day, the princess made a decision that would ripple across her civilization. She ordered the preparation of a cultural exchange proposal, not a mating contract. Not a political alliance, a mutual learning accord, one that would allow limited human presence within her system under her protection. It was unprecedented. Her advisors reacted strongly. "This is dangerous," one said. "Humans will influence our society?" "Yes," the princess replied. "That is the point." On the moon, the human prepared for his first extended flight test. The ship was not beautiful. It was patched, uneven, and loud. But it was stable. As he powered up, a message came through. "I have taken a step," the princess said. "One that cannot be undone easily." He glanced at the controls, then leaned back. "You want to tell me what kind of step?" "I have proposed formal exchange," she said. "Not ownership, not obligation. Choice," he exhaled slowly.
That's big. Yes, she agreed.
"And it will be challenged." He considered this. "You know humans aren't exactly subtle. I am learning that." He smiled. "Still, it means something that you're willing to take heat for an idea, for an individual," she corrected. That made him pause. He finished the flight test successfully, lifting off and circling the crater before landing again. When the ship touched down safely, he felt something shift inside him. Not just relief, but direction. That night, as stars filled the sky, he spoke more honestly than before. "You know," he said, "where I come from, people would say this is crazy. A soldier talking to an alien princess about culture and choice. And yet you continue," she said. "Because," he admitted, "you listen." The simplicity of that statement struck her deeply. Listening was considered passive in her society, secondary. But through him, she was learning that listening could be an act of courage. In the days that followed, pressure increased. Political factions demanded the princess end contact. Some suggested removing her authority for her own protection. The threat was subtle, but real. She did not tell the human everything, but he sensed the strain. "You don't have to do this," he said one day.
"I didn't ask you to,"
she answered, without hesitation.
"That is precisely why I will." The exchange proposal passed narrowly, bound by conditions and oversight.
The princess accepted every restriction without protest. Progress, she knew, often began constrained. When she informed the human, his response was quiet. "Thank you," he said. "For what?" she asked. "For choosing," he replied. The word echoed in her mind long after the call ended. On opposite sides of the stars, both understood the same truth. They were no longer just surviving circumstances. They were shaping them. The day the human soldier finally left the moon, there was no ceremony. No flags, no witnesses, no grand announcement. Only a patched ship rising slowly from gray dust, engines humming with effort and stubborn pride. The ship shook as it climbed, but it did not fail. It carried with it weeks of work, months of endurance, and one quiet truth that even the galaxy had begun to notice. Humans did not wait to be saved. Inside the cockpit, the soldier watched the surface fall away beneath him. The crater grew smaller, the wrecks became dots, and the lonely place that had nearly broken him faded into memory. He should have felt relief. Instead, he felt something closer to focus. He opened the communication channel. "I'm clear of the gravity well," he said. The reply came almost instantly. "I see you," the alien princess answered. She stood in the observation chamber, watching his ship on a massive display. Around her, advisors waited in silence. Some were tense, some were fearful. All were aware that this moment mattered more than it appeared. "You did it," she said. "Yeah," he replied, smiling to himself. "Turns out it really did fly. You repaired more than a vessel," she said. "You altered perception." He did not fully understand what she meant, but he felt the weight of her words. As the ship aligned for a jump, alerts flickered on the princess's displays. Communications spiked. Signals from nearby systems multiplied. Other civilizations had noticed the movement. A human ship leaving a forbidden salvage zone without assistance raised questions. "Too many questions. Attention is increasing," an advisor warned.
"Some factions are displeased. They would be," the princess replied calmly. "Change is inefficient." The human heard the tension in her voice.
"Everything okay on your end?" "No," she said honestly. "But it will be." The ship entered faster than light travel, stars stretching into lines of light. The soldier leaned back, letting the ship do what it had been rebuilt to do. Travel. During the journey, messages arrived from human space. Rescue fleets, command inquiries, medical checks. Offers of debriefing. The soldier answered them simply, carefully. He did not mention the princess yet. He wanted that conversation to happen, face to face. On the princess's world, reaction was swift. Some praised her foresight. Others accused her of emotional weakness. One faction openly challenged her authority, citing external influence as grounds for concern. The court was divided. She stood before them without fear.
"You believe strength is perfection," she said. "You believe survival comes from avoiding damage."
I believed the same. She activated a display showing recordings of the human repairing his ship. Slow, patient, persistent.
"This being survived where our models predicted failure, not because he was flawless, but because he adapted." Murmurs spread.
"You fear contamination of our culture," she continued. "I fear stagnation."
An elder stepped forward.
"You would risk everything on one species?" She met the elder's gaze. "No."
I would risk it on an idea that survival is not about remaining untouched. It is about continuing despite being changed. Silence followed. The vote that followed did not grant full approval. It granted tolerance, observation, time. It was enough. When the human ship emerged near the edge of her system, escort vessels approached cautiously. They did not lock weapons. They did not issue commands. They waited. The soldier followed protocol, transmitting identification and intent. His ship, scarred and mismatched, looked nothing like the sleek vessels around it. And yet, none of them underestimated it. The princess watched the approach, patterns on her skin shifting with restrained emotion. For the first time in her life, she was about to meet someone who had spoken to her without reverence or fear. Someone who had seen her not as royalty, but as a person. When the docking clamps engaged, the sound echoed through both ships. The airlocks aligned. Systems synchronized. The human stood at the threshold, smoothing his uniform, which was clean but worn. He felt suddenly aware of how ordinary he looked. "Here goes nothing," he murmured. The doors opened. The first meeting was quiet. No dramatic gestures. No sudden movements. Just two beings standing across a short distance, studying each other in shared space for the first time. The princess was taller than he expected, more solid, less delicate. Her presence was calm, controlled. But there was something else now. Curiosity, unshielded. "You're real," he said again, softly. She inclined her head. "As are you." He smiled, a simple human expression, unplanned. "Guess we're past screens now." "Yes," she replied. "This is different." They walked together through the corridor, escorted at a respectful distance. No one spoke. The silence was not uncomfortable. Later, in a private chamber designed to be neutral, they sat across from one another. "I want to be clear," the human said. "I'm not here to be studied like an artifact."
"I would not ask that," the princess replied.
"I wish to learn, not to own." He nodded. "Good. Because I don't belong to anyone."
"Nor do I," she said. "Despite what many believe, they spoke for hours."
Not about mating, not about treaties. About failure. About fear. About what it meant to lead when certainty was gone. The princess admitted something she had never voiced before.
"I have always been told what I am worth," she said. "Never what I want."
The human listened.
"I've always been told what I should survive,"
he said. Not why. They found common ground there. Over the following weeks, the exchange began. Human engineers arrived, cautious but curious. Alien scholars observed human repair methods with disbelief. Human crews worked alongside alien technicians, teaching them how to improvise when systems failed. In return, humans learned efficiency, long-term planning, and balance. There were mistakes, misunderstandings, tension, but no retreat. The galaxy watched. Reports spread. Humans were not conquerors. They were collaborators. They did not demand dominance. They earned trust by fixing problems no one else wanted to touch. The phrase began appearing in diplomatic circles. Human persistence factor. As for the soldier and the princess, their relationship did not fit any category. They did not rush. They did not label. They chose. One evening, standing before a wide window filled with stars, the princess spoke quietly. In my culture, choosing a mate is a declaration of future intent. He considered that. For humans, it's a promise to try, even when it's hard. And if it fails, then we learn, he said, and we don't regret trying. She reached out, not touching, but close enough to feel warmth. Then, she said, let us begin with that. Somewhere far away, the broken moon continued to orbit in silence, forgotten again by most of the galaxy. But its legacy remained, because one human refused to abandon a broken ship, because one princess refused to ignore an imperfect strength. And because together they proved that the most powerful force in the universe was not beauty, efficiency, or control. It was the simple, stubborn will to keep going, and the courage to choose connection over fear.